All right, I'm going to assume everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. And I can see at least the middle of the room here. Those of you on the side are safe, can't see you. But as we go along, anyone has a question, comment, whatever, just yell, or Kartik will maybe repeat your question, make sure I hear it. The sound is coming through just a bit garbled, I think, because the microphones are up in the air there. They're picking up everything. But thank you for bearing with us as we try to put real-world technology to use here. I'm sorry I can't be there with you in person today. This will probably be far more frustrating for me than it is you, because I'm one of those people that likes to walk around a lot while I talk. So I'm sort of stuck to a chair here. Anyway, to just take just a moment and spend a bit more time on my background as Kartik began to relate to you. I have had a very, I think, sort of unusual career path over the years, and one I've been very fortunate to have. As Kartik mentioned, I quite literally grew up in retail, my family owning a large independent supermarket in upstate New York. And it was there over 20 years ago, I launched one of the first loyalty programs in the US supermarket sector. And very quickly found myself at sort of the leading edge of that space as it began to develop. And that really was a transformational time in retail, because prior to that, the only data that we were able to see as retailers was really transaction data, right? We knew what products were being sold. We could look at a transaction or a basket and understand what products were in that basket, but we really didn't know who the customer was behind that basket or that transaction. Through loyalty programs, for the first time, we're able to not only understand that customer behind that transaction, but gain an understanding of that customer over time as they shopped over time. And I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, belong to some kind of retailer loyalty program, right? At Safeway or Harris Teeter or Giant, wherever you may grocery shop, CVS, so on and so forth. Finding myself at the leading edge of that space, I helped drive a lot of early industry learning around customer behavior, customer value, retail marketing economics at a customer level. That quickly led to my spending nearly all my time helping other pretty significant retailers create, deploy programs themselves so they could begin to focus on gathering, understanding, and using customer data. So I've had the privilege of working with Kroger over the years, the largest supermarket retailer in the US, a number of other retailers here, and then over the years, many retailers internationally. From the retail side, I then began to get calls from some of the big brand manufacturers like Procter & Gamble and Unilever. Initially wanting to understand what this data was that the retailers now had, but very quickly moving to helping brands partner with retailers, leveraging all this data to develop collaborative marketing initiatives that created benefit and gain for the brand, for the retailer, and ultimately for the shopper. More and more, as technology became more and more important in retail and in this space, I began to be pulled that way. And through all this, I was able to use my family's retail store as sort of my sandbox or my lab, where we could test and trial not only marketing ideas, but increasingly test and trial new technologies. And it was really that led to my starting what we call CART, the Center for Advancing Retail and Technology, several years back. CART is, let's see if I can get my screen working here. Bear with me just a second. Okay, everything, there we go. So CART's mission is really to help the retail industry connect with innovation. And CART focuses on what we call fast-moving consumer goods retail. So we're focused on the supermarket sector, drugstore, convenience store, discount store, et cetera. We are currently looking at well over 1,200 new solutions, closer to 1,500 new technologies, new solutions flowing into the retail industry each year right now. And we are seeing the pace of innovation, the pace of technology doing nothing but increase. The core of CART is our web platform where people in the industry can go to the CART site, search for, discover, learn about new innovation, what solutions, technologies are out there, filter through them. That platform is used by somewhere north of 45,000 industry executives, and we have over 6,000 different solutions on there and growing. We also help coordinate pilots of new technology and innovation out in live retail stores to better understand how that innovation plays out in the real world. And we also coordinate a twice a year virtual pitch event where we help new innovation, new startups get in front of key industry executives. So all of that has provided us sort of a unique background and understanding of retail at a pretty deep level across the supply chain, and also a sort of ringside seat to new innovation, new technology flowing into the industry. So that's what I want to try and share with you today is give you some insight as to what's going on and how fast things are moving. So as I mentioned just a minute ago, our focus is fast-moving consumer goods. And, you know, these are all brands that all of you, I'm sure, know well and probably purchase from time to time, right? You know, things like Dannon Yogurt or Frito-Lay, Procter & Gamble, Kraft, Pepsi, Coke, etc. You know, inexpensive but highly consumable products. And as I'm going to show you in just a moment, when you think about marketing and fast-moving consumer goods, it may not at first sight strike you as sexy or maybe even as particularly challenging. You know, like really what's involved in trying to sell another bottle of Coke. It is an incredibly large and incredibly dynamic industry. For example, in supermarkets, there are now nearly 38,000 supermarkets across the US market doing somewhere close to $650 billion in annual sales collectively. Next time you walk into wherever you grocery shop, maybe it's Safeway, Giant, whatever, stop for just a moment and think about that there are over 40,000 SKUs, 40,000 individual products on the shelves of that store. And then think for a minute what it takes in terms of logistics, of operations, of supply chain activity to keep those 40-some thousand products on the shelf in the right spot, constantly refilled, refreshed, managing, you know, out of shelf life dates for perishable products, you know, making sure all the fruit is fresh, making sure the pricing is correct, and so on. Right? There's a lot going on there behind the scenes. Related sectors, drugstores, or over 43,000 drugstores across the U.S., another couple $100 billion in annual sales, and over 150,000 convenience stores, again, doing a couple $100 billion in annual sales. So we've got, all told, nearly $1 trillion a year industry that really touches nearly every single consumer in the United States. So this is an industry that's characterized by high sales, by high transaction frequency, and at the same time, very, very thin profit margins. The typical supermarket operates on a less than 2% net profit margin. And typically that number is often closer to 1% or 1.5%. So high sales volume, very thin margins. That $1 trillion industry is powered by over $200 billion in marketing spend every single year. So that $200 billion flows from the consumer packaged goods manufacturers, those companies like Coke and Dannon and Chobani and so on. that money is spent typically across four significant budget areas, right? The first is national advertising, just what you think it is. You know, those are funds that pay for television, radio, billboards, magazine advertising, and so on. The next bucket is consumer promotion. I'm sure none of you read the Sunday newspaper, at least in print anymore, but maybe you remember growing up, your parents did read the Sunday newspaper, and you know, when they opened it up, spread it out on the table, there were often what we refer to as FSI coupons. All those coupons in the Sunday paper, that's consumer promotion. So it's any promotion, coupons, be they paper or digital today, rebates, anything, promotion that flows directly from brands to the end consumer. The next bucket is trade promotion. These are funds that flow from the brand to the retailer, and then some of that money making its way to you as the shopper. So next time you go in the store and you're going to buy, you know, Chobani yogurt that's on sale, Chobani is supporting that discount to you, right? But the retailer is also peeling off some of those trade promotion funds in the form of making brands pay to secure front page placement on their weekly ad. They charge brand manufacturers for special displays in the store and a variety of other things. The last bucket is a more recent area called shopper marketing. This has really come into its own just over the past 10 years or so. Shopper marketing funds also flow from the brand directly to the retailer, but are focused on supporting a specific marketing initiative and increasingly leverage data and data-driven customer insights, and increasingly the ability to target specific promotions to specific customers. So all told, massive marketing spend powering a huge industry. To give you a sense of that marketing spend, if you look at any of the big CPG companies, Coca-Cola, Kleenex, Kraft, etc., you'll see that their marketing spend is their largest single line item expense after cost of goods sold. For many of these big brands, that marketing spend represents over 20% of their total annual revenue. So a massive spend, right? On the other side, trade promotion is incredibly beneficial to the retailers. It not only powers up all the sale items each week that the retailers use in going to market, but if you were to really be able to drill down into the P&Ls of the biggest supermarket retailers, you would find that they are not profitable without peeling off those trade promotion funds that they charge brands for. So these marketing funds are incredibly powerful and important to this industry. Before I go further talking about retail, though, I want to shift here for just a moment and talk about the power of exponential growth. And, you know, obviously, you know, we're going to be focused on technology today. And I think, you know, why I want to focus on exponential growth here will become very clear very quickly. Because it is exponential growth that is powering technology and that is changing our world, right? Certainly in retail, but also far beyond retail. And this concept of exponential growth is something that is really difficult for we as human beings to really get our head around, right? We think in a linear fashion, right? Today to us is very similar to yesterday, and our expectation is tomorrow is going to be very much like today, because that's how our life has evolved, that's how we have grown up, and that's been our experience so far. Certainly we see change over time, but we have not in our lives historically typically seen very fast, especially transformative or disruptive change. But that's about to change. To give you a sense of the power of exponential growth here is a simple example, right? If I were in front of you and I were to take a step, you know, that step is typically about 1 meter. So if I were to take 30 steps, I'm going to wind up somewhere 30 meters or so away from you right now, probably down the hallway there in the building. But question for you. If I were to take 30 exponential steps, where each step is double the distance of the previous step, how far do you think I'm going to travel in 30 steps? Now, don't cheat. I can't see you very closely, but no cheating with calculators or phones or whatever. Does anybody want to take a guess how far I'd travel in 30 steps?
To the moon. Did you hear that one?
No.
You guys talk up fast. To the moon.
To the moon. Okay, well, you're probably not far off. So to give you a sense of this, I would travel 1 billion meters, or about 26 times around the planet Earth in 30 steps, but 30 exponential steps, right? That's the power of exponential growth. And this is something that, you know, we, again, have trouble understanding, but it's a concept that I would challenge each of us to really begin thinking about, and something we are going to have to adapt to. So let me come at this in a little different sense and give you a sense of just how fast technology is moving today. So 15 or 16 years ago, around the year 2000, a $1,000 computer had processing power equivalent to the brain of an insect. Okay, now, that really certainly does not sound too impressive, right? And I agree with you. At the time, you know, back 15, 16, 17 years ago, though, you know, it was relatively early days for computers, especially personal computers. This was pretty cool stuff. But just a few years ago, around 2015, that $1,000 computer now had the processing power equivalent to the brain of a mouse. Now, again, at first glance may not seem really impressive, but that's quite a gain in 15 years from, you know, a tiny insect to now the brain of a mouse. Within just the next few years, that same computer, effectively that smartphone that you all either have alongside you or have in your hand at this moment, is going to have the processing power equivalent to a human brain. And that's just within the next few years, by 2023, 2024 at the latest. And within the next 25 years, that $1,000 computer, that device you've got in your hand, will have processing power equivalent to the combined brains of every human being on this planet. And at that time, it's projected to be about 9 billion people. Now stop and think about just what's happened over the past 10 years with technology, how you've seen technology evolve. I mean, it was 10 years ago when Apple released the first iPhone, right? You all saw that. You probably all got one. And, you know, before that, there was not an app store. There was no such thing as a smartphone, right? Overnight, it created a whole new industry and technology that has come to transform our lives. So what we're seeing happen is this exponential growth of technology. And what is fascinating is that we are right now sort of at the cusp, that point of inflection on this growth curve, where up until this point, this change we've seen from the increase in technology has been relatively slow. We haven't really noticed it yet. We certainly see it if we sit back and think about it, but it hasn't really come up and slammed us in the face yet. But that is going to change, and it is changing right now at this point in time. So I would encourage all of you today to think about what's going to happen in the coming years, and how you as an individual, how we as a society, and certainly how whatever business you wind up working with is going to be impacted by this change, and how that's going to change our lives. Now, as mentioned, what is happening is this faster, cheaper processing power is fueling the growing use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Again, phrases and words I know you all have heard and have some understanding of and use. And this is all feeding on the fast growing amount of big data. But what's powering such rapid change is all of this is now sitting in the cloud, making incredibly sophisticated solutions available to anyone on Earth that has a web browser and an internet connection. What this also means is that for the first time in history, any single person with a web browser, with an internet connection, and a credit card can go in, can buy or lease space on Amazon Web Services, can use open source technology to write transformative software solutions and literally change the world. And that is exactly what is happening. We are seeing innovation certainly coming out of Silicon Valley, but I think what's more striking to me is the innovation we are seeing coming out of Kansas City, coming out of Ohio, coming out of markets you'd never dream of across the US, and even more so, the innovation coming into this industry from international markets. Israel is a hotbed of innovation right now, but we're seeing stuff coming to us out of Finland, out of Argentina, out of Asia. A couple of our folks are in Singapore right now at a conference, and are coming back with a wealth of new technologies. This is transforming the world.
Hey, Gary?
Yes.
I have a question. Yeah, can you hear me, Gary?
Yes. Yep.
Have you been following Elon Musk's recent leak of his intention to input, what's it called, AI into human brains?
Yes. Yep.
Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if we can get to that in your presentation, but any thoughts on that?
So yeah, Elon Musk is talking and actually seeking to do something about this. There was just an article that came out late yesterday or last night. I saw a couple articles on Facebook through one of their innovation divisions is focused on connecting us as a human being to technology directly through our skin, through reading our brains. There's a lot of activity going on in this space, and we're only going to see more and more of this. I'm not sure, some of you may be familiar with a guy by the name of Ray Kurzweil, Kurzweil. He is a leading thinker and technologist in the world of technology. He currently heads Google's artificial intelligence offers. He's written multiple books over the years. One of his that I'm in the middle of, it actually came out a few years ago, is called The Singularity is Near. He speaks a lot about the coming sort of merging of technology and human beings and what this is going to look like. To many people, this is frightening stuff. To other people, this seems like science fiction. In an episode of Star Trek or Star Wars or something. But these are the things that we, and especially you, are going to be seeing happen not only in your lifetime, but over the next few years. And they're going to literally change the world. So, the stuff like Elon Musk is involved with, I think is on one hand scary, on the other hand exciting. I certainly would love to be able to have access to a massive hard drive of all my memories of all the information in the world that I could instantly access. That'd be pretty cool. Is the day of, I'm sure many of you remember the Terminator movies and Skynet and robots taking over. There's a lot of discussion in the industry. And if you look for this discussion going on, amongst Peter Thiel, Musk, and Bill Gates, and a handful of others, a lot of discussion going on around, is AI, as it continues to develop, going to be benign, or is it something that could actually turn against us? So things that we all, especially you, are going to have to grapple with. Any other thoughts, questions around that? I see somebody there in the back.
Yeah, so I was curious if you knew, just going along that thread, if you know of any ethicists that are writing about it from a perspective of like, is this a good thing to be happening or not, as opposed to this is what we expect to happen?
So I think if I heard you correctly, if I'm aware of any ethicists that are writing on this?
Yep.
So how I would answer that is, actually, if you were to look at the background and the education of some people, like Peter Thiel, they actually are students of philosophy. And while maybe not a straight up ethicist in maybe the sense that you were asking the question, my knowledge, understanding, information on a number of these people are that there's a lot of philosophy in their backgrounds, and a lot of philosophy that colors their thinking and how they approach things. And I think that gets pretty fascinating. Any other questions, or should we keep moving?
I think you can keep moving.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so just to finish out this slide. So we've got exponential growth of technology. We've got this other line now of human beings and how we're thinking linearly, right? So this growing gap between these two things represents an opportunity to disrupt existing businesses, existing conventions. That growing gap also, to me, represents the largest single threat to this massive retail industry today, right? And we're seeing this. I'm going to give you a quick example of this here in just a moment. Probably the best example I could give you of how that gap is opening the door and threatening traditional brick and mortar retail is to look at what's happening with the grocery industry moving online. If we look back about 20 years ago, back in '96, there was a startup company called Webvan that at the time was focused on getting into online grocery. They felt that the world was going to move quickly, as the internet and the World Wide Web were developing, that, everyone was going to begin ordering groceries online to have them delivered to their home. This company went out and raised the better part of $1 billion. So at the time, it was the richest startup and remains one of the richest startups in the last 20 years. They built, with that money, a number of massive distribution centers in different parts of the country. They put on the roads a fleet of delivery trucks, hired all sorts of people to staff the distribution centers to deliver orders and so on, and failed miserably. Great idea, a little too early. Blew through that $1 billion, went out of business. A few years later, early 2000s, we saw a handful of supermarket operators continue to experiment with online. I was actually one of them. And I'm thinking back somewhere around 2003, we actually licensed one of the first online shopping solutions available and put our store online, enabling customers to shop online, tell us when they would be by to pick up their order. We'd bring it out and put it in their car, and off they went. A little activity, nothing massive. But fast forward to, today, basically 20 years after Webvan, and despite 20 years of activity in the industry, we're still seeing less than 2% of industry sales being done online, right? So just the industry just itself has not been able to move a lot. But now let's look what Amazon has done just over the last 2 years, right? As they have focused on online grocery shopping. Dash buttons. I'm sure many of you are familiar with dash buttons, right? One-click ordering brought into the house. You can put a dash button for Tide detergent by your washing machine. Click the button and Tide is on the way to you. They also, within the last couple of years, launched the Amazon Echo with Alexa, right? Shop by voice. Amazon Fresh, they became more aggressive with lowered pricing, expanded it into additional markets. Amazon began integrating the Dash replenishment service into a growing number of smart home appliances. So now the dishwasher knows when it's running out of detergent, can automatically reorder detergent that shows up at your door the next day. They have been rapidly growing the number of branded dash buttons that are available. Amazon, I'm sure some of you may have read about the Amazon Go store that is being piloted in the Seattle market, right? Sort of an expanded convenience store, a lot of fresh foods, prepared foods, and so on. But it's a completely automated store that if you're an Amazon Prime member, they still have this in pilot just for their employees. But you can go into the store, pick a basket up, shop, put products in your basket, walk out the door, and Amazon will automatically charge your Prime account for the products you just picked up. They're leveraging all sorts of technology from video analytics to RFID, other things, shelf sensors, so on and so forth, video recognition systems to know exactly what products you pick up, whether you put it back on the shelf or whether you put it into your basket and walk out the door. They have some other brick and mortar store pilots going on. And just recently, within the last few weeks, Amazon made headlines by inviting the top C-level executives from like the top 10 or 20 CPG manufacturers to a conference in Seattle at Amazon's headquarters under the headline of transforming consumer goods retailing. And what Amazon's pitch, if you will, is to the consumer goods manufacturers is simply this. You know, today, Mondelez creates a package of Oreo cookies to look nice when it's sitting on a store shelf, to attract your eye to it in hopes that you'll purchase it. But that package design really doesn't work well when the intention is to see the product online, put it in a box, and ship it to you. So what Amazon is basically saying to all the large CPG companies is, hey, the day of designing your products and your packages to go on a store shelf at Walmart or Kroger are rapidly coming to an end, brands. You should now be thinking about designing your packages to go into a box to be shipped to that customer for same-day delivery or, you know, the next day delivery. A massive change in this industry. And it's putting the brand manufacturers in a really interesting place because they certainly see how big Amazon is. They see how fast Amazon is growing in this space. And yet at the same time, they cannot afford to alienate a Walmart or a Kroger or other big physical brick and mortar retailers. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens here. But look what's happening. In just the next few years, Amazon alone is going to be doing 2.5% of total industry sales and 1/3 of all online grocery sales. So what took the grocery industry 20 years to do, Amazon is going to do inside of a handful of years. So that's the power of being able to move fast and being able to leverage technology when you don't have to worry about the legacy of brick and mortar stores you have to drag along with you. And I can tell you that every retailer in the supermarket industry, drugstore industry, and many other retail sectors are lying awake at night having ulcers about it, what Amazon is going to do next. So with that as sort of a foundation, I want to give you a quick look at what is happening across the supply chain, is how I've tried to organize some of these slides and thinking here. and how innovation is changing things so quickly. So we're going to start with the consumer. When I'm speaking to retailers, and I've also written about this quite a bit, I talk to retailers about a few new customers that they're going to have. And what I try to impress upon retailers is that these new customers are never going to be seen in their brick and mortar stores. They may be seen occasionally, though, at the retailer's digital store from time to time. And lastly, these few new shoppers aren't going to be alone. They're going to be bringing with them millions, potentially tens of millions of other customers. So what I'm referring to here are the fast-growing use of virtual digital assistants, things like Amazon's Alexa, right? Google's Assistant, brought to you through their Google Home speaker appliance, and certainly Apple's Siri, right? Alexa, again, is a great example to speak to. Amazon is rapidly growing that platform across a number of touch points, opening that technology up to other providers, integrating it to light fixtures, thermostats, other things around the home, and extending it outside the home. Google is rapidly moving into the shop by voice, or what we think of as conversational commerce space. Already today, if you have a Google Home appliance, you can speak to it and go shop at Whole Foods, you can shop at Walgreens, you can shop at Costco, and a number of other retailers simply by talking. Apple Siri has not gotten into the shopping space yet, but you can bet they're going to. And also Apple is extending this platform. But to come back to Alexa and Google in particular, right? These companies are really pushing hard to develop, these virtual assistants as a platform, right? I just mentioned how Amazon's extending Alexa to other appliances, other fixtures in the home. Alexa is now available on your iPhone through the Amazon app. They're also integrating Alexa into car systems. Ford, Hyundai, and Volkswagen are all integrating this, and a number of others are pushing on this. Apple has been very aggressive, taking Siri into the car. But Amazon's whole idea is to make it just ever easier for you as a shopper to shop wherever you are at that moment in time. So you can be driving home and simply say, hey, Alexa, I'm on the way home, turn the air conditioning on, preheat the oven, turn the lights on, and oh, by the way, I need a case of water, some more paper towels, and a couple bottles of my favorite Merlot. Please put those on the shopping list and have it delivered tomorrow afternoon to me, right? And this is all stuff that is being done today. These systems are also rapidly moving into the office. And we're going to begin seeing these systems tied to business systems, so that you're going to be able to simply ask Alexa or Google or Siri to access information for you at work. I spoke a few minutes ago about Amazon's Dash replenishment service, right? And this is leveraging the whole Internet of Things platform. So, Amazon being very aggressive, integrating Dash replenishment into a growing number of home appliances, the washing machine, the dishwasher, even Brita water filters now. The filter itself being smart, knowing when it's time to order a new filter and being able to do so automatically by connecting to your Amazon account and placing that order. You don't even have to think about it. We're also, I was just within the last couple of weeks at an accelerator pitch event in Dallas and spent some time with a company out of Israel that is creating a sort of dash button competitor for other retailers, for the rest of the world. So other retailers now, Walmart, Kroger, whoever, can have their own version of dash buttons that they can provide you as a customer to put around your home, be able to just simply click and order things at the touch of a button. Any thoughts around that stuff?
Yeah, we have a question.
Just one question. So I've never used a touch button before, so I'll start with that. But if they move into larger items, so say for example, there was a touch button on your HVAC system, and they started creating HVAC systems to just kind of shut down after 10 years or whatever, and it automatically orders me a new HVAC system. Has anybody said anything about like an auto budgeting or auto notification to let you know that you're going to be ordering a really expensive piece of technology?
So, okay, so I heard most of that, but I think the gist of your question was around, are there any notifications, any safeguards around this to prevent someone from either on purpose or accidentally ordering something very expensive or else other thing, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the way these things work is that they can be, in a sense, programmed, right? The way the dash buttons work out of the box is that it will only order one of those products, even though, you know, a child may come along and click that button 10 times. It's only going to place one order in so many days. Now, you as the customer or the user can go in and modify some of those settings, but there are safeguards around that. And certainly you can tie notifications to the use of these things and so on. Yes.
Thank you.
But, you know, there are, that question brought up another example of a related area here. Some of you may have seen sometime in the last few months, there was actually a murder trial that went on, and it was either the defense or the prosecution issued a subpoena to Amazon to access any and all voice recordings that were being done in that home of the murder. They were after any recordings that, you know, the Echo device or Alexa may be overhearing the person charged with the murder, you know, saying something or doing something to implicate him or herself. So, you know, there's some fascinating implications around this kind of technology. You know, how many of you have, I'm sure many of you have an iPhone. How many of you have had the experience where all of a sudden Siri thinks you're talking to her? So just in the past few weeks, you know, I not often, but occasionally, you know, turn the TV on, and I've had 2 or 3 instances now where all of a sudden my phone wakes up because Siri thinks she heard Siri or something approximating that coming over the TV, whatever show I had on at the time, and my phone lighting up and, you know, Siri saying, "What can I help you with?" So it makes you wonder just how much of our lives are being recorded or listened to by some of this technology.
Gary, one more question.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about equity of these innovations? It seems like they're really for premium shoppers.
So I guess I would maybe dispute that. You know, I think that it's easy to sort of think of or make the assumption that these things are sort of targeted at more premium shoppers, but you know, just look at Amazon, right? The Alexa device itself is what, $179, but you can get an Amazon Dot, I think it is, for well under $100. You know, they have priced this technology to be available really to nearly anyone. Google, you know, sells the Google Home unit for less than the Amazon Echo, and, you know, even Apple, who makes some of the more expensive smartphones out there. I have seen study after study that shows, you know, even very low income portions of the population are carrying around the smartphone, right? And have a data plan and access to all sorts of these technologies. So, you know, I think what I'm seeing is that maybe it is more upper demographic consumers that maybe are early adopters of this kind of technology, but it is priced and is available to really anyone out in the market today.
One more.
Yep.
I guess to push on that a little bit further, isn't it also reliant a bit on having good internet connection or having some way to basically have an enabled system in your house? Because I would imagine that would actually be a large barrier to a lot of people adopting this technology.
So again, great question. Yes, all of this that I'm talking about is dependent upon having a live internet connection. You know, Alexa, Siri, Google's Assistant, all these things are sitting in the cloud, right? So it is a real-time communication and flow of information. When you speak to Siri, you're not speaking to Siri on your iPhone, you're speaking to Siri up in the cloud, because it's going out to the cloud in real time, figuring out what you're asking about, sending that communication or information back down to you. Amazon's working the same way. And again, I don't have the latest stats off the top of my head in the US around internet connectivity into the home. It's certainly high. It certainly is not everyone yet. But again, I think it comes back to the importance of this, right? Mobile devices, smartphones in particular, that nearly everyone, literally nearly everyone has one in their pocket or their hand. And that device, wherever it is able to access the internet and access the cloud. Again, I can't give you the specific numbers off the top of my head, but I can tell you that this past year, more people began to access the internet over a mobile device, primarily smartphones, than they did accessing the internet over a laptop or a desktop. And furthermore, something like 80 or 85% of the time they were on their mobile device online, it was through an app. So an app like Siri or an app like Amazon or whatever. So, you know, great question, but nearly everybody's got one of these, and that's how they're online today.
Thank you.
That's
Okay.
questions.
All right, we'll keep going. All right, so let's look what's happening over in retail. As I spoke about a few minutes ago in that example with Amazon, the grocery industry is moving online pretty quickly. There's just a recent study that came out by the Food Marketing Institute and Nielsen that is projecting 20% of industry sales are going to be done online by 2025. So in less than 8 years from now. And moreover, that same study is projecting that 40% of center store sales, packaged products, will be done online by that time. That's massive. In an industry that I mentioned early on is driven by sales volume and is operating on such thin profit margins, you know, for the typical retail store to lose 10%, let alone 20% of their total sales to now being shifted online is massive. That is enough to throw the typical supermarket or even drugstore from being profitable, cash flow positive, into absolutely hemorrhaging money. The other statistic that I think is fascinating that sort of ties into this is, again, speaking to Amazon. Amazon is capturing 53% of all online sales growth right now. And that's across the board, right? Whether it's office products, apparel, groceries, whatever it may be, Amazon is capturing over half of all online sales growth. One company. But the key takeaway here is how fast this industry is moving online. the impact of that. Because again, think back to my thoughts around marketing budgets, right? The threat to the retail store here is not only losing those top line sales, but in particular losing the center store sales, those packaged products, and losing not only the sales of those packaged products, but the marketing funds that accompany the sale of those products. The marketing funds that retailers dependent upon for their profitability. So brick and mortar retail in fast moving consumer goods quite literally has a gun to its head right now. And that is driving every brick and mortar retailer in the supermarket industry, be it one store independent operators to Walmart, Kroger, and all the big guys, to moving online as fast as they possibly can. But think back to the example there of what it took grocery 20 years to do, Amazon is doing in just a few years. How much faster Amazon can innovate and make this happen than a brick and mortar retailer that has the legacy and has all the dead weight of those thousands of stores and hundreds of thousands of employees and associates they have to bring along with them in any kind of transformation, right? The world is changing fast for brick and mortar retail. And I think the same can be said of a growing number of retail verticals, whether it's apparel, jewelry, whatever business or industry you want to think of. It is moving really fast. I just read a very interesting article either late last night or this morning around pricing and the fact that Amazon uses what we think of as dynamic pricing. Amazon's ability to literally change prices on products in real time based upon demand, even based upon what a given shopper is looking at. Okay, and being able to change that price to help ensure they get that sale and at the same time, maximize their profitability. Now think about pricing in a physical brick and mortar store. It can sometimes take months, literally months, for a large retailer to execute and implement a price change on any given item and have that filter its way through the organization down to each individual store. How in the hell does an industry that takes 3 months to change a price, how are they going to compete in the world of an Amazon that's able to change prices dynamically? Right? This is a whole new world.
2 questions.
Yep.
Andrew?
So I'm just wondering why the online grocery industry isn't bigger today. I feel like we've heard about projections for a while about how it's going to explode, and there's no shortage of companies that are in this business now, whether it's Instacart or Peapod or others. And I'm wondering what has to change. Is it the economics of it for the firms? Is it the customer experience? Personally, I used to use Instacart a lot, but the number of times I've had my orders screwed up or the usability isn't very good, the listings don't seem accurate. I'm just wondering what has to change for this to explode the way it's projected to. So
that's a great question. And I think it is a combination of a number of things that are sort of happening all in tandem here. You are not the only one with that comment or that question. Citibank's research division recently brought me in. I spent a day with them in New York and a day in Boston, speaking to fund managers and analysts around this very topic, right? We hear all this talk about e-commerce and grocery. Just how fast is it moving or isn't it moving? Because it seems like a lot of people are talking about it, but it's not happening yet. My answer and my response is that it is indeed happening, and I think we are at the precipice and are literally sort of going over the edge where we're going to see this move increasingly fast. I say that from a number of perspectives. One is simply looking at the activity on our platform. you know, we do a report each quarter where we go in and look at what retailers are looking at, what types of solutions they're looking at on our web platform. Retailers looking at online grocery solutions, you know, solutions they can license or purchase to help them move online, has been #1 in 3 out of the last 4 quarters. I say that from conversations I have with retailers of all sizes across the country nearly every single day. You know, rarely I have a conversation without talking about online and how fast the retailer is moving there. I can also call out firsthand knowledge of some key regional retailers that are moving online. And, you know, one in particular that has already rolled out to several dozen stores is already seeing 10% of store sales being done online. So, you know, we're seeing things move fast. I do think, though, that as this continues to move, we are going to see development of new models and new store formats, right? You know, shopping is as much a social experience as it is, I need to get stuff. You know, people like running into their friends, neighbors, family members, whatever, when they go shop, right? It's social. At the same time, particularly in the food business, you know, I think many people, regardless of age, continue to like to be able to pick out their own fresh foods, right? I want to pick out my own tomatoes or fresh fruits, vegetables, steaks, whatever it may be, because there are differences there, and I have personal preferences. But a box of cornflakes or a bottle of Diet Coke, it's going to be the same wherever it comes from. I know what it is. I don't care where it comes from, right? I'm very comfortable ordering that online if you make it easy for me, and I'll either pick it up when I come to the store to buy my fresh foods or just have it delivered to me at home. So does that help respond to that?
Yes. Second question.
My question's more kind of about this Armageddon for brick and mortar grocery stores. And my mom's been a cashier ever since she was in high school at a grocery store in Chicago. And so I kind of think about some of those jobs, and she'll probably be okay because hopefully she'll be retiring soon. But I think about a lot of those folks who she works with. So I imagine a lot of those jobs will now be transferring online. So kind of what's your projections for timelines where we really see these like drastic cuts of brick and mortars kind of closing down, or any insight you have on projections?
So I think realistically, we're going to see what we think of as the sort of typical brick and mortar store today, supermarket, drugstore, et cetera, really be transformed easily within the next 10 years. And I think in some cases, it's going to happen much faster than that, right? You know, I mentioned Amazon is experimenting with their Amazon Go store that is completely automated. There's no people that work there other than to stock the shelf, right? I know that some of the biggest retailers, Kroger, Walmart, are looking at those technologies. They know those technologies. You know, they're certainly not issue free yet, but you know, a lot of people are looking at this stuff. We are seeing growing interest in self-shopping, right? So again, I can walk into the store and using the retailer's app, I can simply scan products as I'm going up and down the aisle and putting them in my cart. And then when I get to the checkout area, just simply, you know, either through wireless or scanning a QR code or something, being able to pay for my order at the touch of a button, and out the door I go. I don't need a cashier there anymore, right? So we're not going to see cashiers in this example go away overnight, but I absolutely believe within the next 10 years, and I think much sooner than that, we're going to see wholesale transformation.
2 more questions, Gary. Go front row, Sarah, and then middle row, Sarah.
Gary, I was wondering about with the explosion to online that, you know, you're saying we're on the precipice of, are there certain consumer segments that you expect to really either be the early adopters or to drive this, or do you think it's pretty spread evenly across kind of regional and different customer demographics?
So a great question. I think that, we're going to see younger people drive this, millennials, et cetera. But I also see differences in different parts of the country, right? So I live in the Marina Del Rey area of Los Angeles. And, I can tell you that I am just almost stunned every day. If I walk outside, the number of delivery trucks I see going up and down the streets from, FedEx, UPS, the post office, Google, Amazon, delivering orders, and more times than not, they're delivering grocery orders, right? It's mind-blowing to me. I was just in Lubbock, Texas, not too long ago. I don't know if any of you know where Lubbock, Texas is. Certainly not a huge town, sort of out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And yet, there are a number of supermarkets and several Walmart supercenters in that market. Each of the Walmarts has now built out on in their parking lots several drive-through pickup lanes where customers can go online, place their orders, simply drive through this pickup lane on their way home and pick up their order. So, I think we're going to see younger people in more population dense areas probably move a bit faster, but eventually this is going everywhere.
Sarah?
So I actually had a question. You alluded to it before about how people are social at their grocery store and want to pick out the actual meat or milk that they're trying to buy. How does HelloFresh or Blue Apron or like Relay Foods fit into this segment, and then can it compete with Amazon's new shopping model?
So again, great question. So, things like Blue Apron obviously have been growing very, very quickly. They've tapped into a market there. I think ultimately we're going to see those companies probably be acquired by another retailer, perhaps even by an Amazon. We're seeing companies like Kroger and some others that are actually trying to develop their own sort of in-house competitor or competitive offering to a Blue Apron to be able to satisfy that piece of the market.
One more.
Yep.
One more. What are your thoughts then on how this shift will impact public health and especially obesity? Because it seems like there's a lot of, you can eliminate food deserts and get vegetables to anyone in one breath, but at the same time, there's also a tremendous amount of power given to kind of food habits and what you traditionally buy or continue to buy, things like that.
So, phenomenal question. And if I could ask you to hold that question, I'm actually going to address that towards the end here.
Sure.
So let me see if I can sort of quickly, and Kartik, we've got, another 20 minutes or so?
Yeah, just about.
All right, okay, let me try to sort of quickly move through some more of this. So as the grocery business starts moving online, again, I mentioned to you the thin margins that brick and mortar retailers operate under, right? As they start shifting some of their sales online, operational efficiency is at the top of their list, right? They know how to operate stores efficiently. They need to figure out how to fulfill online orders efficiently. We're seeing a lot of focus around this area from solutions, providing capability to the order picker to pick multiple orders in one trip around the store, leveraging product location to effectively map out where that order picker should go, aisle by aisle for the most efficient path through the store, tracking time spent, all that stuff. But we're also seeing things like this. I'm going to be talking a lot about robotics here today. So this is a company called I Am Robotics that is developing a robot that is capable of piece picking, so picking individual items, and they are doing this with a view towards fulfillment of online orders. So imagine something like this rolling around the aisles of the grocery store later at night when either the store is closed or it's quieter, doing all the fulfillment for the orders that came in that day, right? We're seeing a lot of activity here. The picture on the left is another company developing piece-picking robotics for use in a dedicated distribution center. But again, understanding the need for piece-picking for online order fulfillment. Also, this move online is putting more and more focus on the brick and mortar store, and retailers needing to get everything they can out of the investment in that store. We are seeing a lot of growth and interest in this area of in-store analytics. So in the upper right corner here, you're seeing a video analytics system that is able to track and measure the number of customers coming into the front door of a store, where they go in the store, what aisle or department they visit, how long they spend there, what they do there, and so on. In the middle of the three lower images, a company like Dorstat is able to use anonymous facial recognition to provide not only how many people came in the door, but of them, their gender, their age, their ethnicity, and even able to measure the mood of that shopper. They're able to accurately track and measure, I think it's 8 different shopping moods right now. So they can tell if you as a shopper, if you're angry, you're happy, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're neutral, or whatever, and be able to provide that information back to the retailer. Systems like this help a retailer understand through a heat map where the activity is in their store. There's just a lot of work going around this whole space. And this is opening the door to, again, a new world for brick and mortar retailers that historically didn't really know what customers were doing when they came into the store, right? It was almost a black hole to them. So powerful new stuff. This is a company that is able to use Connect type sensors that are able to track and measure motion. They install these over a specific category, able to measure the number of people going by a category, the number of people that stop, and also what you do there. They can actually track what specific product you pick up in that category and what shelf you pick it up from, and whether you pick it up, look at it, and put it back on the shelf, or whether you pick it up and put it in your basket. So again, new world of data, new world of metrics that retailers can begin to manage too. We're also seeing robotics coming into the retail store in other ways. I was just up in San Jose a few weeks ago visiting a Lowe's store. Lowe's has been testing the use of a robot like this in a few stores for the past year and a half. They are now in the process of beginning to roll this out to additional stores. But this is, they call it the Lowbot. So if you were to go in the store, you'd see these things cruising up and down the aisles. If you're a customer, you can actually stop one of these things and say, where's the paint? And it will bring up on a display on its front what aisle the paint is located in, and actually lead you around the store to the paint category. Now, while these things are rolling up and down the aisle though, the top of these units are embedded with sensors, including latest generation optics. And these cameras are watching the shelves as it goes by. And what it is looking for are any products that are out of stock. It is looking to make sure that every product is in the right place. And it is able to read the shelf label, the shelf tag under each product to make sure the price is right. right? That's how advanced this stuff is getting. This technology was not available even 12 months ago. That's how fast the space is moving. But today, units like this can do this, and they're helping retailers know what products go out of stock on the shelf so somebody can address that so they don't lose more sales. This is a company, Excel Robotics, I was just with a couple weeks ago in Dallas. They are developing robotics for customer service. Their early deployments are in apparel and shoe stores. So the idea is you can, in this example, pick up a pair of shoes, show it to the robot. It will use image recognition to know the specific product you picked up, be able to tell you about that product, be able to tell you if that size is in the back room, and get a human associate to come over and help you with that. This last one is a company out of China, and this is Sandbot. There are thousands of these already deployed in China in hospitals and in airports, providing customer service functions. So if you're in the airport, you can go up to one of these and say, hey, you know, I'm on BA flight number whatever. Where does it leave from? It'll tell you and direct you to the gate, direct you towards passport control, whatever your questions are. This company is rapidly moving into the US. What's fascinating here is that unlike the others that are using sort of task-specific software to power these things, this company has taken more of an app store approach. So you buy the robot from them, and then you go to the app store, or you hire a developer to develop the application you want for that robot. So again, for using this in, for example, a supermarket, I could buy one of these things, download an app that gives it all sorts of knowledge about wine, put it over in the wine department where it can tool around and help customers select their wines. Or I could put it over in the produce department to help customers pick out different fruits, vegetables, and so on. So, again, what literally just a few months ago seemed like science fiction, this stuff is now happening. Sandbot, that last one I just mentioned to you, their factory in China has the capability of churning out 10,000 units a month. That's how real this stuff is getting and how fast it's getting there. Drones we've all read about. Everyone is playing with these, Amazon, Walmart, etc. When I was just there, a week or so ago, some of the folks in class had actually seen the unit down in the lower right. Any of you seen that thing tootling around Georgetown or the streets of Washington? Yeah, a few of you? All right. That is from a company called Starship Enterprises that is piloting this technology for delivering whatever it may be, groceries, whatever you just ordered. They're actually working with Domino's Pizzas in a couple of markets to deliver your pizza. The company is doing tests there in your area in Washington, Mountain View out here, and a couple other markets around the world. So cool stuff.
Gary?
Yep.
My question is kind of around the internet and how there's going to be an increasing dependence on the internet for all of these systems. And I was listening to one of the TED radio hours, and there was an expert on there with, talking about how with the crash of the internet for 4 hours and how we were able to overcome that, but we're kind of in the honeymoon stage with internet, and that it's inevitable that there'll be some serious downtime in the next 10 years maybe with internet. So what is being done to kind of mitigate that risk or prepare for a downfall? If we're moving to the big distribution centers and getting rid of the brick and mortar, the internet's down, we're not able to get food into the cities.
So great question. I mean, there is no doubt that we are all more dependent upon technology, more dependent upon the internet every single day we wake up, right? I can't give you any detail into that beyond certainly not only the government, but all the big players are focused around this, are focused around security of the internet and the robustness of it. And I think, you know, when you're sort of asking that question or thinking about that area, I think hand in hand with that goes, you know, all the cell systems powering these things up, right? You know, I mean, we all probably have had experience at one point in time where maybe, you know, there's been a major storm that's gone through the area that has shut down cell service for some period of time, and how lost we are all of a sudden when this doesn't work. You know, certainly there's a area of significant risk, but, you know, and I'm not going to say that there's not risk there. There certainly is. But I know many people are focused on that. So, Carter, should we keep going?
We can keep going.
All right. So let's look at distribution, what's happening. Again, robotics are very much at play here. On the right, Walmart is actually using drones inside its massive distribution centers. They're using drones to fly up and down the aisles to make sure, to look for items that are out of stock, just like the robot is doing inside the retail store. They're using these drones to make sure everything is in the right place, the right slot. They're also, you know, making sure that, you know, things are moving the way they should be moving. On the left is Amazon, a picture from inside Amazon's, one of their distribution centers. Amazon, several years ago, bought a company called Kiva for $750 million, and immediately shut down sales to anyone else and are using the technology internally. So these Kiva robots are being used across all the Amazon distribution centers today to bring a rack of products to the human being that's picking that order. So instead of the human now going up and down the aisles of a distribution center to pick products, the human being is standing in one place. The robots are bringing the items to the human, one right after another, to quickly pick that order, put it in the box, and send it off. Amazon has lowered its operating costs in its distribution centers by 20%, a massive number. In the middle is pictures of a company called Symbotic. Symbotic was purchased a few years ago by the guy that owns C&S Wholesale Grocery, the largest wholesaler in the United States. A privately owned company that will do about $30 billion this year. He has used the technology to build completely automated distribution facilities for his business, C&S Wholesale. I had the privilege of being in one of these things a couple of years ago, and it is unbelievable to walk into a distribution center that is about 1 million square feet. That's approximately 200 football fields. That's 10 stories high, that is completely cubed out, racked to the ceiling, and completely pitch black. Robots don't need eyes to see where things are, so why pay the power bill to turn lights on? These facilities use these robots that go up and down the aisles, putting product cases away and picking cases to fulfill orders. There's literally a handful of people that power up a 1 million square foot distribution center. Rick is also now building automated facilities like this for Target, for Albertsons, and is in discussion with Walmart. So again, somebody a while ago talked about the impact of this kind of technology on jobs. Think about what you're seeing here, right? Now, yesterday, that 1 million square foot distribution center required a couple hundred employees or more to put away orders, pick orders, to operate. Today, maybe 6 or 8 people. We're seeing, anyone heard of Otto? Otto is a self-driving truck company that was purchased by Uber about a year and a half ago. They recently did a test in Colorado where they delivered a truckload of beer down the highway. The truck drove itself for a couple hundred miles from the manufacturing or the bottling plant to a retail store to deliver that truckload of beer. Obviously, there was a human being in the cab at that time, but that's how fast this technology is moving. Many people within the industry expect we're going to see self-driving trucks before we see self-driving cars. The company on the right is a company called Peloton. Some of you, may be cyclists, understand the notion of drafting, where if you're riding a bike and you can tuck in behind the guy in front of you, it takes a lot less energy to keep pace, right? Because that person's breaking the wind for you. This company has applied the same idea to trucking. Their software allows trucks to literally travel within a few feet of each other, 70 miles an hour down the road, drafting each other and realizing over 20% gains in efficiency, operating efficiency. Lastly, I'll just quickly speak to, so we can try to wrap this up, into what's happening in the manufacturing area. 3D printing, many of you, are familiar with, have heard of. 3D printing is being used in many more places than we realize it today. All the hearing aids, for example, hopefully none of you are having to use, but all the hearing aids are printed via 3D technology and have been for the past 5 years. A growing number of aircraft parts are now being printed 3D on location in the factory here in the US, instead of being fabricated, for example, in China or Vietnam or somewhere else and then having to be shipped. We are seeing 3D printing coming to food, believe it or not. Barilla, the big Italian pasta company, has actually invested in a company that now makes 3D pasta printers. They are deploying this across some good number, I want to say a better part of 1,000 restaurants around the world. So you're able to get 3D custom printed pasta. But we're seeing the technology going a lot faster and beyond this. There was a company that just received $1 million or a couple $1 million grant from NASA to produce 3D printed pizzas and other food for use in the space station. And we are seeing a number of companies focused on being able to print not only a single food, but a cheeseburger or a complete meal. Where this gets really interesting is there is a hospital today over in the Netherlands that is using 3D printing to be able to custom fabricate a meal for the individual patient to ensure that that patient is getting the nutritional needs they need based upon whatever their needs are, right? So if a specific patient needs more vitamin D or whatever it may be, you simply program that in, and when that patient's meal is produced, maybe it's got an extra helping of vitamin D. So think about the implications of that for just a moment. The other thing we're seeing is lab-grown protein. And again, some of you may have read about this. It's been in the press just in the last couple of months. So the idea that poultry like chicken or beef is being grown in a lab. This is real, it's happening. You're gonna see this commercialized probably within the next 3 to 4 years. There's a company in the Oakland area that has just received, I think it was $10 million in funding. They have acquired a processing plant and they are headed towards commercializing this capability. Again, think about the implications here of, now you can ensure that that protein is hormone-free, pesticide-free, whatever it may be, right? Because you're actually growing it. Perhaps no area, though, is being disrupted as much as marketing in the retail industry today. And how manufacturers are changing how they spend marketing funds are a great reflection of that. We're seeing, for example, digital ad budgets almost triple in the last 5 years. We're seeing the money going to traditional mass trade promotional dropping. So a big change is happening here. You know, if we look at back over the history of retail, what I think of as sort of retail 1.0 kicked off back in the early 40s by the development of the first self-service stores and the growth of the first national media networks, right? All of a sudden it enabled a brand to reach a big part of the population in this country through national radio, national television, right? Why do you think many of you have heard the term soap opera? That came about because the soap companies actually funded the first television programs on television networks, the soap operas. Then in the mid-90s, we saw the growth of big retail. This was triggered by Walmart's entrance into the grocery business that kicked off a wave of consolidation. So fewer, bigger retailers growing fast, and also the development of loyalty programs. It gave retailers a new flow of data for the first time that brand manufacturers didn't have. And then we have what I think of as retail 3.0, so customer centricity. So retailers using customer data to drive product assortment, pricing, promotion, and targeted marketing at the individual store level. Real hot area today. Kroger has been leading the charge in this area, leveraging their customer data over the past decade, viewing that data as an asset and monetizing it through different ways. One of the key things they have done is use that data to target specific promotions to customer households. So any of you shop at a Kroger or Kroger retail division, like Harris Teeter maybe, or others? Okay. Do any of you get either in the direct mail, snail mail, or electronically your personalized specials each week or each month? Okay, I see a couple hands there. Kroger has done a phenomenal job with leveraging precision targeting of offers and promotions to grow customer share of wallet. They have grown their premium loyal customer segment by over 250% over the past decade. And they do that by crunching through all their data to find opportunities to grow that basket. So for example, the first example there, the guy, you know, that's spending a lot across different categories, but maybe laundry, he's not buying anything. He's going to Walmart for that. Kroger sees that and all of a sudden starts putting an offer for Tide detergent in his offers. Or in toothpaste, he's buying it occasionally, but not often enough. And Kroger seeing that as an opportunity to try and get that purchase from you. Incredibly powerful, but it is taking Kroger literally somewhere around 500 full-time data analysts crunching through all this data to do this. Really powerful, really works, but only the largest retailers like Kroger can afford to do that, right? But again, technology is changing even that game today. And we're moving into this world of hyper-personalization driven by AI and machine learning. So companies like a Birdseye, a young company that I do some work with, that is doing effectively the same thing that it's taking 500 data analysts to do, Birdseye is able to do in the cloud. And leveraging software using AI and machine learning to automate all this, making this kind of technology and capability available to even the smallest retailers today to use. So that's how technology is transforming even something as successful and as recent as what Kroger has been doing, changing the game dramatically. The notion of using that hyper-personalization and tying it to real-time knowledge of where you are in the store through beacon technology, or triangulating on you using Wi-Fi technology in the store to be able to surface that promotion that's relevant to you in real time based on where you are, right? So if one of you happens to be in front of the cookie category at that moment, the system knowing that, being able to go out and seeing that you like Oreo cookies and providing a 50-cent savings back to you on Oreos to get you to put that in your basket. But the next customer likes Chips Ahoy, may see an offer on Chips Ahoy. So let me try and wrap this up with a few quick closing thoughts here for you. The first is this, right? This world's moving fast. Amazon spent or invested $15 billion in tech-related innovation this past year, more than the top 20 retailers combined if you exclude Walmart. Walmart recently created a new division and set up a venture fund to invest in new technology. They're currently looking at 750 new technologies each year, right? A lot. They're focused on AI, automation, robotics, and more. Kroger Technology employs over 2,500 people in the US and in some areas of the globe to keep track of new innovation. Kroger is focused on interactive shelves and this notion of personalized pricing, right? Meanwhile, traditional retailers, 3/4 or more of their annual technology spend simply is going to maintaining and upgrading existing systems, not innovation. So this gap that I've spoke of early on is becoming a huge problem, right? Many of you familiar with this idea of a technology adoption curve. What's happening is that brick and mortar retailers are increasingly falling behind while the actual adoption curve itself is being compressed, driven by how fast tech is moving and how fast consumers today are adopting it. We're also seeing convergence, and this goes to the comment a few minutes ago about the impact of this on health. And Kartik, I'm wrapping this up real fast. I know we've gone a few minutes over. I'm sure some of you sitting there today have some kind of wearable device on your wrist. Maybe some of you have an Apple Watch. Think about what that watch knows about you today, right? It knows not only how many steps you've taken, how many flights of stairs you've climbed, it knows your heartbeat. Increasingly, that device is going to know your blood sugar levels, your blood pressure, and other things. Now think about what's happening with 3D printing of food or food customization and personalization. And lastly, think about what's happening with healthcare today and the pressure to contain healthcare costs and try and solve some of these major societal issues like diabetes or obesity and other things. And now put all this data in the cloud, right? I think we are going to see, and I'll share with you a couple things here, already beginning to see these things converge. So think about the day where I'm in the store shopping, I'm going down the aisle, I'm in front of the potato chips, I reach out to pick up a bag of chips and my watch zaps me, or I get a notification on my phone, you know, saying, I better be careful of that, Gary. You know, your blood pressure is too high, or your blood sugar is too high, or if you do indeed go ahead and buy that, we're going to raise your insurance rates. Right? May sound a bit far-fetched or silly, but this stuff is beginning to happen. The potential for these types of connections to be made is there, and I think there is going to be too much pressure societally to contain healthcare costs to not begin to connect those different data points, right? I'm involved in an initiative today. I can't give you specifics, but the whole idea is to leverage knowledge of knowing what prescriptions a certain customer or consumer is taking, with inferring what disease state that customer has, and then providing savings on products beneficial to that state. So the easy example is knowing that Bob has just picked up a prescription for insulin. Okay, I pretty confidently know that Bob's got diabetes, and now being able to provide Bob savings on broccoli, high fiber foods, low sugar foods, et cetera, that are beneficial to his state of well-being. This stuff is happening today. And the last thought I want to leave you with, something that I think you folks are going to be grappling with today in your jobs, absolutely tomorrow in your jobs and in life, is this growing gap as companies are failing to keep pace with implementing new innovation, opening the door to traditional retailers that move faster or to new competitors like an Amazon coming in from outside.